Serial killers have played a big part in society for centuries. They can be dated back to the 17th century, although they are more likely to have been more than were documented.
They think they're not going to get caught, that they're cleverer than law enforcement.
There have been many famous serial killers since then, the first of which was Mary Ann Cotton. Cotton killed around 21 people, including 3 of her husbands and 12 of their children. She was only convicted of one murder, although the other victims all had the same mysterious death. Having been convicted, she was hung in 1873 with 20 reporters watching. Serial killers will continue to rock our streets, but because of police improvements, such killers are caught earlier and so have fewer victims. Aaron Campbell, who killed 6-year-old Alicia MacPhail, was described by the judge as a serial killer in the making. The only reason why he didn't kill more was probably because he was caught.
One of the big things that seems to underlie why serial killers target certain people and why they become serial killers in the first place is to do with power.
Joanna Dennehy is a serial killer who was directly involved in the Pier Ditch murders. She went on a 10-day killing spree before finally getting captured. She is classed as one of Britain's most dangerous female serial killers because she was in control of the whole chain of events, and she seemed to get satisfaction from committing these crimes.
And then she goes against the gender norm. She really does, because she was so violent, and she loved it. She loved the thrill of all that, and in fact she actually wanted the fame and notoriety as well, didn't she?
She killed and attacked multiple men, 2 of whom she didn't even know.
We don't know, but serial killers seem to target in patterns and have a preferred victim type, although sometimes it can be very opportunistic.
Is it handcuffed to the rear or to the front? Handcuffed to the rear. Back to back.
1 mark for attempted murder and murder.
Well, this was a plea that nobody was expecting, Simon. It was supposed to be just a standard court appearance before trial, and the trial date is still fixed for later this year. But suddenly, when asked how she plead, Joanna Dennehy, who's 30 and from Peterborough, stood up and said that she pleaded guilty to the 11 charges against her.
She showed no remorse, even threatening to kill another serial killer, Rose West, as soon as she arrived in prison.
It is a whole life tariff for Joanne Dennehy. She will expect to die in prison. And in the last few seconds, the judge has said that she showed a substantial degree of premeditation and planning, and that is why Mr. Justice Spencer has given Joanne Dennehy a whole life tariff here at the Old Bailey this afternoon. And as that was delivered in the courtroom, there was a cry of yes from one of the victims' family. Now, during the sentencing hearing, we've been hearing the details of just what Joanne Dennehy had done last year in the space of just 10 days.
One of the things to do with sentencing, and whole life sentences in particular, there was a big controversy around this idea of hopelessness. If you're in prison with absolutely no hope of ever being released, people have made comments like, well, why not just die? You've got absolutely nothing to live for. And it leads to situations where people are becoming very violent in prison because they've got absolutely no hope of ever being released. They've got no reason to behave well and become rehabilitated.
Rose and Fred West were the ultimate killer couple. They raped and killed young women, one of whom was their own daughter. Fred committed suicide before his trial, and he tried to take the blame for Rose, but the jury saw through this.
Frederick West, charged with 12 murders, has been found dead in his prison cell. The Gloucester builder was found hanging by prison staff. An inquiry has begun.
The fascination with them, anyway, I mean, considering they committed the most heinous of crimes, there's such a fascination with them anyway. And if you look at the media and you look at the amount of documentaries or even just serializations involving serial killers.
There are other killer couples like Myra Henry and Ian Brady. Keith Bennett was the final victim to be found, but the efforts of the police was unsuccessful, and his mother, Winnie Johnson, spent the remainder of her life searching to give her son a Christian burial. But sadly, she died in 2012 without finding her son's final resting place. Ian Brady and Myra Henry are one of the most infamous serial killers in British history. But what about the victims?
The issues around missing persons is ambiguity and not knowing what's happened to your loved one.
There has been many other serial killers over the years, but some are unconfirmed, as there is this old-fashioned saying, innocent until proven guilty.
Serial killers will usually have a type.
What about Jane Barton, who worked here at the Gospel Memorial Hospital as a doctor? She hasn't been charged, and there have been many inquiries made by the police that they still haven't proven her guilt, despite hundreds of people being dead.
The chances of a fair trial coming about, if it ever did come to that, are very low, because everybody knows about it. People have made up their minds before they've even got an awareness of what the evidence is.
Dr. Barton would pass the death sentence by saying make comfortable, and they would soon die, even if they weren't particularly ill at the time. Some serial killers have killed so many that the exact number is unknown, or they are unable to get convictions for them all. And this stops the families of the victims from getting closure. Sometimes they don't prosecute because the killers will never be released anyway.
You know, it's almost like you give a serial killer a platform.
The public has an unhealthy fascination with serial killers, but what about the victims? They often get forgotten, and that isn't right.
It's something that just piques sort of people's interests as well, and it's that thrill, it's the curiosity.
What makes these killers commit such horrendous crimes against innocent people, whose only crime was that they're in the same place as the perpetrators?
So in a way, there's sort of a kind of media fascination now with serial killers.
Murder is never acceptable. However, some are worse than others. Jack the Ripper is one of the most infamous killer of all time, because his identity is still unknown, and that is unlikely to change because his crimes were committed in the 1800s.
The victim status is actually removed from them. By calling them prostitutes, they're less deserving.
There are many rumours surrounding his identity. Jack the Ripper didn't just kill, he tore them apart and sent letters to the media.
I think the media does have a role to play in keeping people aware of what's going on.
All the rumours about Jack the Ripper is just conjecture, as there is not enough evidence for any of these theories. There are hundreds of suspects, not all of them are viable. One suspect was even in the country at the time and he was incarcerated. Out of all the suspects, some are favoured based on the information they have gained on this era. But different people favour different suspects and the identity will never be revealed, because there's too many suspects and not enough evidence, due to a lack of scientific development in the 1800s.
The media has been instrumental then in the sort of the way that the serial killer continued, continued doing what they were doing. I think it was the Zodiac killer that was taunting the media and saying, if you don't do this or if you do this, I'm going to kill so and so many other people and things. I think the media has got a massive role in this. Certainly exacerbates the bloody problem just by releasing the facts of how the victims were murdered, can influence. Other people think that we're going to do the same thing.
Even though there wasn't much development of police procedure in this era, many killers still got hung because of the flaws in their system. Evidence did not have to be as reliable as it does these days. Now it must be conclusive. However, back then they could accept circumstantial evidence that would still lead to a conviction. Like Mary Ann Cotton, the only evidence they had was the fact that all her family died in mysterious circumstances, and one of her victims' cause of death got revealed. They didn't have any real evidence, although it was too much of a coincidence for it not to be true. Many serial killers are killed whilst in a position of trust. Like Harold Shipman, who was a doctor. He was also known as Dr. Death, as he killed his patients. He spent the remainder of his life in prison before he committed suicide in 2004 by hanging himself. Harold Shipman is believed to have killed hundreds, and this shows the flaws in their system because so many patients had to die before people got suspicious, although this was over a 10-year period. But because this went on for so long, the exact data and nature of his crimes are unknown. As he was never going to reveal what he had done, all the police could do was find the evidence, so they only know what they could prove.
By putting that information out, it does cause serial killers to change their modus operandi. I know that happened with the Golden State Killer.
The media has impacted these types of crimes for decades. They glamorise the situation, and the killers enjoy seeing their work in the press, which encourages them to kill more.
The only way to stop it is obviously catch them early.
However, this isn't always the case. It depends on the motives for committing these heinous crimes. If the motive is that they want the publicity, then the more press attention they get, the more people they kill.
If potential serial killers thought that they weren't going to get the attention that they're so obviously craving, I think that would help.
Some killers have been known to say they want to kill more than another killer because they want to become better known. Some of these killers have even had films made after them, making them even more famous, giving them what they so desire. This isn't always the case. Some killers have other motives, like Beverly Allen, who was also known as the Angel of Death, as her motives were attention due to Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
When you do look at serial offenders, mental health issues do seem to play a role.
This means she has a desire for attention, so she tries to kill the children on the ward just to save them.
Often violent female offenders, they are called mad rather than bad.
However, this went wrong a few times, and some sadly died. Because of her need to be a hero, she didn't want to get caught or the media attention. All she wanted was the attention she got when she saved lives.
The media just kind of inject ideas into the public consciousness, and then the public are just sort of passive consumers. So everything we see we just accept without question.
The media gives these people nicknames, like Peter Sutcliffe, who was the Yorkshire Ripper. Does it actually help save lives by reporting these incidents, or does it make them want to kill more? Some of these killers try to control the media, and Roll Mode is a prime example of this. He would kill more if he saw anything in the media that he did not like or agree with, so there was a bigger threat to the public. The authorities had to insist on a media blackout in order to protect and preserve the public. He was involved in an armed standoff with police for 24 hours before it was finally drawn to an end. He had an accomplice at the beginning of the rampage, but it would soon become clear that it was the driving force behind it all. Many serial killers enjoyed the media attention, even though they don't want to get caught.
You know, you kind of play into the gender stereotype that, you know, a woman can't be violent just for the sake of being violent, which is problematic as well, because it's sort of categorising people like men are the aggressors, women can't have these emotions, and so if they do, there's got to be a plausible explanation for it.
They like to remain a mystery, although some like to make a name for themselves, so they don't care if they get caught in the end.
We have had people who have killed because they want to be infamous.
All these killers have two things in common. One, they have killed several people, and two, they're hated by the public.